everyone, and welcome back to the True to Form podcast. I am joined for part 2 with my very close friend and amazing human being and renowned surgeon, Dr. Sheila Barbarino. So we did a part 1 episode. Hopefully you all listened to it. It was super informative. I know I learned a lot about you, Sheila, that I actually didn't even know. So Dr. B is an amazing, amazing human being. She has a 2-location aesthetic practice. She's also a partner of Alpha Aesthetics now, global speaker, KOL for MERS, Galderma, many more, a close personal friend of mine. And she's also someone that I just have the best time with in the world because she makes me laugh until I am crying. So I'm just really excited to have a part 2 with you. Dr. B, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Every time I get a chance to talk to you, it's always so fun and informative. And I love that we're finally doing your podcast because we've talked about it. And I love your podcast and I love our part 1. So I'm so excited what we have to share for part 2.
Yes, definitely. So for those of you all who listened to part 1, I had to kind of rush it to an end because I had a hard stop that day with a business dinner I had to jet to. But we ended part 1 kind of talking about how the aesthetic industry has been changing over the last 12 months, 24 months. So I wanted to pick up that conversation, and then there's a couple of other topics I wanted us to go through in a part 2 while we have Dr. B with us. So Sheila, if we were to go back to that, we were talking about how obviously we've entered into this consolidation phase in the industry. There's a lot of private equity money coming in, private investment firms and things like that doing roll-ups, and there's a lot of changes happening. So
Yeah.
obviously with that, you're in the thick of it. You've gone through it, you've done it, you've been in the industry for a very long time. What are some like future predictions you have moving forward as the landscape continues to evolve and change?
I mean, all of us, we've never seen it change as much as it has post COVID. Like I've been in the industry forever and it's never been like this. And companies are buying other companies. Crown Aesthetics just bought Revance, right? There is a Korean private equity company that bought Lutronic and Cynosure. Mercue merged with Hugel. There's just, it's like everybody's going out for world domination, right? So like we can only hopefully benefit from it as practitioners. The thing that I do think it's going to be really hard is to compete with all these huge practices that have all these multiple providers, multiple locations.
Yeah.
They're such huge accounts. How can like the mom and pop shop compete with it? So it's going to be a ride. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. And what do you, because I want to land on this because we obviously have people in various business stages that listen to this podcast. What would be a piece of advice for those like entering the marketplace now or opening up a practice now? Like, do you have any pearls of wisdom that you would give yourself if you were to go back in time and give yourself, a piece of advice when you were first opening your practice?
So obviously focus on doing good work, obviously focus on what, why you went into what we're doing. You want to become the best practitioner out there. Learn from everybody. I feel like there's so many times that I've seen, especially recently, from some of the younger people coming out that, you do it for a couple years and the next thing they want to do is they want to like open up a teaching class or they want to run a course of their own. And, I can honestly say the first 10 years, my results were not half as good as they are now, not even close. I had no idea what I was doing, even though you have to be confident and you have to be comfortable. I'm still learning. I've been in practice for 19 years and I'm still learning every single time I go to conferences. And that's why I go to conferences and speak. It's so funny because everyone's like, why do you teach at all these conferences? And it's like, because I learned so much from all the conferences too. There's always, and that's what we love about aesthetics. There's always new technology, there's always new techniques, there's always new products that are coming in to aesthetics. It's constantly evolving and we constantly have to keep up. And if we don't, we're going to be behind. And so, as good as you think you are, there's always going to be someone better out there. So you better make sure you are humble yourself and learn and listen, even if it's to know that like, I don't want to use that. I'm not into that. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work. I don't see any results. That's fine. But at least try it, see if you hate it, see if it works for you, and then make your own decision.
Yeah, I love that. And that's very wise advice from you, Dr. Barbarino. So going on that now, and I agree, like everyone in this industry, whether we're a clinician, an entrepreneur, on the industry side, on the business side, whatever it may be, we should all be forever students of life. And if you think you know everything, that just shows that you certainly do not. If you ever think that at any point in time, and just like you, I thrive in learning new things. And I love that this industry is evolving so much because every single day, and it's so true, we always learn something new. And
Oh,
so I like that piece of advice to put that at the forefront. So on the topic of conferences now too, because obviously you travel a ton. You are on the road very often. Sometimes
I
I
just
don't know
got
how
back
you do it.
yesterday.
Yeah, crazy, crazy, crazy. I actually just got back from Park City yesterday too. So we were both on the road this weekend. Here we are doing a doing a podcast together, which is something I love about Dr. B too. Like this morning, because we did part one a couple weeks ago, and this morning I woke up. I was drinking my like quiet time by myself is when I wake up at like 5 in the morning and I'm drinking my pre-workout on the couch waiting to go to the gym. And I texted Sheila this morning. I was like, by the way, we need to do part two. When are we doing it? And she's like, let's do it today. So
Yeah, I
that's
was
something I love about you too.
like,
Like,
because I
yeah,
was
amen. We're doing it.
right? Like, there's no time like the present. I think that, especially in our industry too, I think there's one more piece of advice that there's no time like the present. I think every single time you procrastinate and you put something off, you always wish that you had done it sooner. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but like,
Yes.
um, there's so many times that I'm like, oh, well, I was supposed to do a meeting with so and so, and for X, Y, and Z reasons, it just didn't happen, and whatever the case is. But then when you do, you're like, God, I was just doing this 2 weeks ago. Like, if I just made time in my schedule to meet with that person, then like would be so much further along. And it's neither here nor there, I guess, in the scheme of life, but it does matter. It does matter. Like timing is everything. And so, if you're not in it to win it every day, like every day I wake up and I'm like, today I'm going to make it happen. And you should wake up and try to do that and see where the day takes you. Because, that's the amazing thing about aesthetic medicine, right? It's like, who knows where the day may take you. It may take you to a podcast with Audrey Neff.
I love it. And I so agree with you. I want to stop on this for a moment. I knew this was how this episode was going to go because we can obviously talk to each other forever. So I on the procrastination thing, I very much agree with you. I think we all procrastinate and it's okay. We're all human. But in the grand scheme of things, if you want to constantly be in an evolving state of growth, I actually find procrastination to be an enemy of growth in a lot of ways. And just like you said, you want to wake up every day and be like, what can I do today? What will lead or what will happen today? And something I just this as an example, I text you this morning. I'm like, when are we going to do part two? We're doing it now. 8 hours later, here we are, here in makeup's done, and we're recording a podcast. And I have found through my life, particularly in this industry for now almost a decade, the more you push things off, it just stunts your growth. And so there's that saying out there too, like if you want something done, give it to a busy person.
Yeah.
And it's really true because busy people are like the ones that are like you, like you're so insanely busy. I text you and it's like, boom, we're doing a podcast. And I very much agree with that. We need to not procrastinate and just do it. Just do things that even if you're dragging your feet a little bit, you'll feel so much better after you do it instead of constantly pushing it to the side. Oh, I'll do it next week. I'll do it in 2 weeks. So do you have any more advice around that though? Because I found that to be pretty prophetic.
Someone else told me something like, procrastination is a decision too. So
Hmm.
even though I feel like everyone's always overthinking everything, and there's so much high anxiety in, you know, life right now. Everybody has anxiety. I mean, I think my dog has anxiety, right? So it's like, um, but I think that if you're constantly like anxiety ridden and like thinking about every single decision, that's okay. But if it stops you from doing the things you need to do, that's not okay, because procrastination is like, if I'm like, Audrey, you know, I'm overwhelmed with my life right now. Like I am, bubbling over at the brim. Like, I don't know when we can do the podcast. We'll do it next week sometime. That's a decision too, right? And
Yeah.
then I miss that opportunity to connect with you and finish the podcast and connect and finish all the things we wanted to go over before. So I think that, you have to remember that not emailing somebody back, not calling them back, not meeting with them, not grabbing a drink with that person is a decision too. And I understand that there's only so many hours a day, and there's like everyone always worries so much about self-preservation, and you really do have to worry about that. I mean, you of all people know that, fortunately and unfortunately, but I think that when you take care of yourself, and like you said, like, let's get it, like someone said to me, I forget, somebody was interviewing me the other day and they're like, oh my God, you do your hair and makeup every day. And I'm like, oh, like I have no idea what's going to happen that day.
Hmm.
Like I could walk in my office, who knows what's going to happen that day? Yes, every day I want to bring my best foot forward, right? Because, you know, you never know what's going to happen. It's so funny. I'm so glad I do that, because there's so many times that I was like, oh my God, I remember this morning being like, do I really need to that extra 15 minutes to, do whatever today? And yeah, like, look good, feel good, do whatever you need to do, to get your day going. But like 100%. The other thing that you were saying, like, is there any other advice? Relationships are everything, and our relationships, everything. Like, preserve the relationships in the industry that you have, and
Hmm.
that the real people that care about you, and the real people that there's that meme on social media that's like, make sure you invest time with the people who talk about you in the highest regard when you're not in the room, right?
Yep.
And like, I totally believe that. Like, these relationships are everything. And I think that um your word is all you have in this industry. Like, I don't care if you're a big deal today, you might not be tomorrow. And if you're not a big deal today, you could be tomorrow, because of that one person you're talking to, or that one friend that
Hmm.
recommended you or put your name in for something that you've always wanted to do, and you didn't even realize that that's what you wanted to do, So
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times that, I've had a lunch or a breakfast or a coffee with somebody, and the next thing you know, I'm like, oh my God, they connected me with like the most amazing relationship, and now I'm doing this a fantastic thing for this other company, and I didn't even know they had anything to do with that. I had no idea. But like, mean what you say, you know, um, do what you mean, and you know, hold your people close, and do good for them and for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. My heart's like smiling inside when you're talking about it, and I so agree. And something you said, I think the saying was like surround yourself with people that would mention you in a room full of opportunities, or something like that. Like when you're not in the room. And I know exactly the saying you're talking about. I just can't put my
Me neither.
whatever it says. It's
Go
out
ahead,
there. We all
go
know.
ahead, we moved on.
Yes. But I so agree. And every day, just like you said, every day you do your hair and makeup because you're like, in the chance that something happens, I want to be ready, look my best, feel my best, and be ready to take on whatever that unexpected opportunity is.
Yeah,
And I think that that's a wonderful and a really, really powerful pearl of wisdom that everyone should take away from this. And because it is so true. Like there's so many days something happens and you would have never expected that to happen, or you met someone and an opportunity came, by manner of that avenue or whatever it may be. And to, yeah, just like to always remain really genuine and authentic. And I think in the industry, as you grow and become more successful and get more speaking engagements and become a global KOL, some people can lose sight of that at the end of the day, we're all just like human beings, and you should always, kindness and staying humble and all of these things, and just being really genuine and authentic with how you operate as a human and keeping your word, just like you said, Sheila. I think that is something that we should never lose sight of. If you have any other pearls around that, like as you grow, and I don't want to use the word famous, but I mean you're like a very famous person in this industry, everybody knows you, but something I will say about Dr. B, because I know her on a personal level. I mean, she's one of the most genuine and authentic people I know, and she's just amazing from the inside out. And I highly respect that about you, Sheila. You are inspiring. I'm very grateful to call you a friend because I really love you so much. But I think that's something to be really inspired by is you can be the best surgeon in the world, the best practice owner in the world, speak everywhere, be a global KOL. But at the end of the day, it's how you treat people that tells all. So I know I think the world of you. I don't know if you have anything to add in terms of advice for others
I
around
feel the
that.
same way about you. I think I've really seen, people and my colleagues even go from, like you said, like not being as famous, and now all of a sudden they're the hottest thing. And sometimes it does change them, right? And
Yeah.
it's a shame. I think they're doing themselves a disservice because if you surround yourself with people that you don't trust, people that you don't like, I mean, why do this, right? Like, how is that fun? It's not fun. Like, you know, like like when we went to Paris, it was so fun to be like, oh my God, you have to come with me. Like, you're coming with me. It was really funny. Audrey and I were texting the other night when it's a terrible story that I told her. So, um, SkinCeuticals had me do this wonderful thing for them, and I had just I knocked out my front tooth a long time ago when I was like 17, uh, uh, playing doubles tennis, and I have gotten repaired over the years. It's never been a problem, and I went to this awesome SkinCeuticals thing in New York, and it fell out the morning of the filming. It's like,
Her veneer popped off, to be
whenever
specific.
you need, when do you need a front tooth? Like, when do you not need to look like a homeless person? Maybe when you're filming, when you're on camera for SkinCeuticals. Like, I don't know. Like, that's like the only time that you really need a front tooth. Like, I mean, homeless people don't need them. Like, I don't really need one. Like, I could probably hide it on this, like, but being filmed, like, so anyway, so so neither here nor there. Audrey and I go to a SkinCeutical event in Paris. It's amazing. They sent me to AMCAS. It was phenomenal. And the next day I was lecturing for them as part of their whatever. And they were passing out the most amazing. So Audrey was just like, oh my God, this is the best burger I've ever had in my life. This is the best, like, whatever crunchy blah ever my time. And I'm like, everything that was coming by, I was like, if
You
I
had to bite.
my tooth on this, they're gonna think I'm like a toothless doctor, that I just run rampant without a front tooth. Like, and what was the dessert? The dessert was like the kicker. It was like, I felt like God was just like thinking it was so funny that, like, the one thing I couldn't do between this amazing dinner that we had and the next morning was lose a front tooth. So, like, remember, like, every single hors d'oeuvre, every single dinner thing, I think the dessert was like a toffee crunch thing. So it was like sticky in the inside, and the top was really hard. And I'm like, I mean, I'm like, the only thing that they served was this like potato leek soup that everyone was like, I mean, the Wagyu sliders, the corn on the cob with the, right? Remember? It was like every single, like, I'm like, I can't eat corn on the cob. Like, that's going to take the tooth. Like, every single thing like, Audrey was like, oh my God, like, this is like, remember? And then life changing, life changing. You're like, that's the best Wagyu burger I've ever had in my life. This is the best corn I've ever had in my life. The toffee crunch dessert was the best dessert. Remember? And then we're leaving, and we're at the Ritz-Carlton in Paris. Like, it was
Uh-huh.
phenomenal, right? And I'm like, can we stop at the bar? Because I'm starving. Remember? And then
Yeah.
the
Oh
guy,
no.
it was terrible. Remember? And then the guy gave us like a thing of those nuts that were deep fried. And I'm like, no, I can't eat those. They're so crunchy. They're gonna chip my tooth. So That's our story. That I was like, Audrey, that was terrible.
I'm going to summarize this story too, because when you tell it, I'm like, okay, if I were listening to this, do I understand the story? So I want to give a quick synopsis.
Yes, because
Listeners know what
it's
happened.
so emotional and dramatic for me that I can't even.
So Dr. B, she was filming for SkinCeuticals. I think it was like in New York or something a couple of years ago, and she
Best
was ready to film, hair and makeup's done, and she bites into an egg croissant sandwich and her veneer pops off in the sandwich. And
7 a.m., like before hair and makeup, and they had a room full of clothes that were my size. I mean, it was like, I felt like Pretty Woman. It was like, oh, and then, and I was like, oh my God, like a dream come true. And then the chef comes in and is like, Dr. Barbarino, would you like a French brioche chicken egg sandwich? And I'm like, why, yes, of course I do. And then I bit into the sandwich and I'm like, ew, somebody's tooth is in this sandwich. And my friend's like, oh my God, it's your tooth. And I was like, oh my God, it's terrible, terrible, terrible.
oh my God, so funny. I'm like literally on the other side right now, crying, laughing so hard. Because I remember the first time you told me this story, I could not stop laughing. But to build on this now, so yeah, we were in Paris together. Sheila and I stayed. We were roomies at MCAS Paris, where we were both speaking, and yeah, she was very cognizant. Yeah, tiniest room, but yeah,
Right?
it was definitely a shoebox, but she was very cognizant of what she ate at the SkinCeuticals event because she did not want them to think that she was missing a tooth again. So,
I'm like, I can
and
lose
it
it
was
tomorrow. I can lose it any other time, but not tonight. Not tonight before, right?
Yeah, no, and it's good. We walked out of that event. We all had our teeth, so it was a good event. You didn't get to
I
enjoy the
know.
Ritz Wagyu burgers. They were the best burgers I've ever had, but that's okay because you walked out with your full smile.
I had like 4 glasses of potato leek soup because
Hmm.
nobody else had it. I was like,
Yeah.
it was fun.
It was so much fun. Yes, MCAS Paris was with you was definitely one of the highlights of my year. It was oh, another funny story. And you know what? I don't really care because you and I like we just go with the wind. So wherever this podcast goes, we'll take it. And I think people appreciate when we switch it up a little bit. But something
Okay.
else I want to add, and then we'll get into some other stuff. But something else I want to add about Dr. Barbarino is this woman is an expert barterer. So while we were also in Paris, we went to a hold on, let me share my part of the story and then you can add. We went to a used purse store, like a consignment store. I don't my brain still works kind of slow. Consignment store and we're in there and Sheila's looking at some Chanel bags and she's trying to
Never
barter for $100 off a Chanel bag. Like we all know how much Chanel is. Is $100 really going to do anything? Sheila is
Yes, principal.
badgering the French employee about if you don't give me $100 off, I'm not buying it. And she's like, we're not giving it $100 off. And she was like, fine, I'm not buying it then. But then she just keeps circling around the store, and then she's fine. After 100 attempts of trying to get $100 off a Chanel bag just for the principle of it, like obviously
Principal.
$100 means nothing to you.
It's a consignment store. That's I'm sorry, it's not Chanel proper. It's not Saks, it's not Neiman's. We're at a consignment store. Isn't that what I mean, that's what a consignment store is for, isn't it?
Not in Paris.
Apparently not in Paris.
Anyways, it was a little embarrassing. I thought this woman was going to throw us out of the store, but Sheila eventually bought the bag and then she took it around with her through Paris, through all the events, the gala, everywhere she was with her consignment store. Used Chanel bag, which
Yeah, I
it was a
did the
lot.
$100 off, so it was a real bummer.
It was a lot of fun. I certainly always look forward to international events with you. It's always a great time. But on that topic now, because I know we're kind of like
You give me a big
this.
tip. You're like, next time you go to a consignment store to put away all my jewelry. Audrey was like, that gal was not going to budge because she knew you were buying it, whether or not
Mhm.
she gave you the $100 off. And I'm like, why? And she's like, because you had all your jewelry on.
Yeah, when you're
And she's like,
wearing 20 grand on your wrist, I mean, people people can
she's like, you're
tell.
gonna look poorer if it's gonna look believable. Like, fine.
Yeah,
So
you
funny.
didn't think that one through.
No,
But on that topic though, because now so we were talking about MCAS. So obviously, I apologize for people, but hopefully people got a little laughter out of Dr. B. At the end of the day, she's this amazing person, but we all have embarrassing stories. So just be thankful that your veneer didn't pop off in New York City while you were about to film a SkinCeuticals commercial. So shit happens to everybody, right?
Well, it's so funny because everybody's like, well, what'd you do? And I'm like, what could I do? Like, I'm a professional. I had to pretend like nothing, right? The show must go on. I couldn't, like, all these people were here. I couldn't stop. And what was so funny is at the end, they were like, Dr. B, we want like a power pose, like with a smile. And at that point, we were like 3 hours into filming. So I'm like, I turn and I smile and I give them my best smile. And they're like, not like without teeth. And I was like, oh my God, can you imagine what that shot must have looked like? Like, ooh, like, and I'm like, oh, right. So it was a smirk instead of a big smile, a confident smirk.
Yeah, but you got through it. So that's the moral of the story. That's the moral of the story. But on that topic now. Okay. So conferences, because this was something Sheila and I were chatting about before we hopped on the podcast. In this industry, there are so many conferences. I mean, everyone's trying to throw their own event now. It's getting very clustered and saturated with events. Some events are
your event that you went to in Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City. I don't know, but we're always at events. So, because I want to ask this question for you, because I know there's people that are wondering, because there's so many. So, like, what is your advice to people who don't know what conferences to attend? Because there's a lot of them. If you could give advice to people, what would it be?
There are so many these days. So, in my mind, there are 3 things to think about. Number 1, how much time you have to dedicate to go to the conference. So one thing that a lot of my colleagues do, and I think there are different reasons why you go to conferences. I go to conferences because I teach and I speak, but more importantly, I want to learn something. So even though I'm speaking or whatever the case is, the reason why I'm going at the end of the day is because I want to learn something. So if I'm only going to go there for 1 or 2 days, I better make sure that I can commit my time for those 1 or 2 days, right? So I feel like a lot of people go and they're like, oh, I'm going to go for 1 or 2 days. And they really didn't make the time like for themselves to go see other lecturers or to really be a part of the conference. So if you're not going to be part of the conference, then don't go. I really think that you have to really immerse yourself. And that's one thing you and I really, I think, can connect on. And I think that's how we really met each other, is because when we're at the conference, we're in it to win it. We go to the breakfast, lunch, dinner, all the events, because that's just part of what we signed up to do when we come to the conference. Like, I'm not one of those people that comes to the conference and is like, oh, well, I'm there, I'm going to do, 3 other trainings, and I'm going to be like meeting my best friend that I haven't seen forever. Like, I'm there for the conference, and that's the primary reason. So I think that if you don't like commit to that, don't go to that conference. It's not gonna be worth it, right? You just don't ever get anything out of it. Even if you've gone to conferences and you're like, didn't really learn as much as I thought I would, there's always going to be 1 or 2 relationships that you've either fostered and made better, or you've met someone new and you've added them to your life. So you really have to commit to either going or not going. So number 2, if you're going to pick a conference, I think, you have to look at the agendas and really, is there enough of these topics that are really going to be worth it? Are these topics that I want to see? Are these speakers that resonate with me when I hear them speak? Do I take their pearls and bring them home and actually put them into my practice? These are really important things. That's how, I choose my conference. And the third one is, I really love innovation, and I always want to be on the front of innovation. So that's why a lot of them have taken me outside the United States, is because I feel like there have been a lot of conferences in the United States that just, it's a repeat of the last like couple years, or it's the same speakers, or it's the same lecture from the same speakers. That's the worst part, right? But at the end of the day, like, you want to see something new and different, even though the biggest complaint and the biggest pushback that I get from a lot of my colleagues are like, yeah, but we don't have a lot of those products here in the United States. I get that. I get that you can't come back home and do, order a bunch of this product that you thought sounded so great. But here's the thing. It's so you know what's up the pipeline and you see where we're going with aesthetics, because we're not the leaders of aesthetics. There are other countries that certainly lead us. And, we started hearing about skin boosting fillers 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And it's important so that you know where we're going with all of this. And so that's why I think it's important to mix it up and go to conferences that you haven't gone to in the past. Um, so you can see things that you haven't seen and see speakers that you haven't seen.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I agree with you on that. But just to kind of go back and summarize what, Dr. B was saying, and these are some great that I wrote them all down. Things that you should think about when picking conferences. Time dedication, absolutely. You need to dedicate the actual time to go and be 100% in if you're
Don't you
gonna,
feel like some people that like they don't commit that time? And
yeah,
don't you think they kind of miss out on that
yeah.
opportunity?
Absolutely, especially if you're already going there, you're already spending the time, the money, the effort, the energy, the travel to go there. Commit to it 100% if you're going to be there. So I agree with that. I agree with you saying, what am I going to learn? Looking at the agenda, looking at who's speaking, what topics are being covered, and then actually analyzing that in terms of, if I go, even if I'm going to speak, what else am I going to learn? And using that as something in your decision making process. And then innovation, absolutely. And I totally agree with you on that. Is yeah, the US is behind in terms of global aesthetics market. We're probably 5 years behind, I would say, the European aesthetic market, if you will. And so and I agree with you. I've learned a ton from my international speaking engagements. I have learned so much because you gain so many new perspectives
So many.
of other markets in aesthetics. So around the international conference thing, really quick, because there's a lot of international conferences, but there's kind of like the core, like the big ones. Is there a favorite that you have that you think someone on this podcast, if they were thinking of doing an international conference, just attending and going to learn, is there a specific one or a couple of them that you would suggest perhaps considering in 2025?
That's a tough one. I'm like, there's so many good ones. I mean, AMWC Monaco is fantastic. We have AMWC North America that they bring in the international faculty here,
Hmm.
which I think is great. Are you going to AMWC North America?
Oh yeah, I love that event.
Yeah, isn't it great? And then I think AMCAS Sao Paulo was phenomenal. Um, like I said, it was bittersweet because you were supposed to go with me, but next year or maybe the year after. But there are lots that we haven't gone to that we want to go to, right? Like there's the one that you were talking about in Colombia, and I would love to go to one of the Asian meetings. I was gonna go to
Yeah.
talk, but it just didn't fall in with my schedule. But at some point, I do want to do one of the Asian ones. Have you done any of the Asian ones?
No, it's the travel is so far, but if we went together, I would go.
Let's do
So
it.
that's something I think is in our near future, Sheila,
I think
because I'm not going alone.
yeah, I don't like to travel alone. Actually, it's been great because when we went to Paris, it worked out perfectly that we like kind of synced up. And then when we went to Vegas, Audrey and I were able to like meet at the airport, and then um, we'll work it out so that we can do the same thing. I, there's going to be the first year AMWC Dubai 2025,
Hmm.
which I think the Middle East has a lot of interesting stuff going on that we don't
Yeah.
consider all these different pockets of um, plastic surgery that they're doing such cool and different things. It's really interesting.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. I was waiting for them to do a Dubai iteration of the meeting too, because it's needed for
Do you go to
sure.
the AMWC Monaco?
I've never been to the Monaco one, so we'll
This year
see.
was like mind exploding. It was so crazy. I I moderated 2 sessions and then I spoke at 2 sessions. In every single session, I was like, "You've got to be kidding me! This is the most insane thing." And you know that moment that you're at a conference and you're like, "Is everyone watching this? This is crazy! I can't even believe like." And it's so like I'm so glad I'm here right now at this moment listening to this. Like, have you had those moments at conferences?
Yeah, totally.
Like all 4 of the things that I was doing, I was like, oh my God, like, is this real? It was crazy. Like, I just remember the last session, it was myself and Terry Bazans that were closing out the session. And the session was entitled, Will Thread Lifts Ever Supplant Facelifts? And I thought it was kind of like one of those like bait, what is it called? Uh, Click bait, whatever, like just to get
Yeah,
people.
clickbait. Yep.
Is that what it is? Okay. So it's the
Hmm.
last session at AMWC Monaco before the big gala. So like I thought they were just trying to get people like into the conference hall just to like listen to the last, and I thought it was just like kitschy and whatever. And so, like I said, as a moderator, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start it off. And, it was, like I said, it was all these world experts. And I was like, as a facial plastic surgeon, absolutely not. It will never, thread lifts will never replace facelifts. And then it was like Terry Bisson's and then 5 or 6 other top surgeons from around the world. I think it was like Turkey, Belgium, uh, Germany. It was like Vienna, like everybody. There were so many amazing minds. And we went down the panel and they were like, absolutely, without a doubt. Like I was like, what? Like, I mean, such a mind blowing, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this is insane. Like, I couldn't even wrap my head around it. I'm like, well, apparently I'm the ignorant one compared to all of these other world
No,
experts.
no, no. Don't say ignorant. You're,
But you know what I'm saying? Like, when would I
yeah,
ever, right? When would you ever say that a thread lifting procedure is going to replace
yeah.
facelift, right? And like I said, I threw myself out there and I was like, well, since I'm the moderator, I'm going to kick off the session and say, the definitive answer, and then we're going to go into our lectures and blah blah. And I'm like, absolutely not. And then it was like, absolutely, absolutely, without a doubt, 100%, sooner rather than. I mean, mind blowing, Audrey. You would have died. Like all of us were like, what? I mean, literally, I was like, texting friends on my like on stage. I'm like, you got to listen to this. You got to believe. You got to. I cannot believe that. Like, it was amazing. So this year, you've got to try to come to AMWC Monaco because, like I said,
Yeah, Monaco's on my list. I certainly hope to make it there. Probably sooner rather than later. Given we never know how long our life is. And actually really quickly, because you mentioned Sao Paulo. So a little story too. So
this
Sao
one's a
Paulo, yeah, Sheila and I were both speaking at MCAS Sao Paulo, and you guys
wait,
all
hold
who
on.
listen to this
Let's
podcast.
tell them. Let's back it up for 1 second. So let's hold it this way. Her and I were talking, and she's like, "Are you going to AMCAS Sao Paulo?" And I said, "I'm not sure because it's really far, and I'm a little nervous about going to Sao Paulo by myself." And she's like, she convinced me to go. She's like, "Let's go together. It's gonna be awesome. We're gonna be roommates." And we even planned it so my plane went from Austin to
To
Miami
Miami.
to pick
Yep.
her up en route to Sao Paulo. So then we were like, I was coming from Austin to Miami, pick her up, and then with the American airline plane and fly us to Brazil. So we show up exactly together, and then we were arranging the same thing at home. So like
Hmm.
she was the reason why I was going really, because like I was like I'm scared of. I'm one of those people that's scared that like someone's gonna break into my like.
I'm
I'm scared.
I'm in the same boat. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like I'm scared. I I feel like I have a big sign on my forehead like rob me, like take my purse, like. So I get really scared, and I had always thought that Sao Paulo was really unsafe. Okay, so now go ahead. Sorry, I had to preface
No,
it.
you're good. It's true. Yeah, we had it all planned out. We were both speaking. We were going together because, we buddy system and we were going to stay in the same room and everything.
Yeah.
And for those of you guys who listen to this podcast, I'm sure you've all listened to episode or follow me on social, know what happened. But literally the day I had my hemorrhagic stroke, subarachnoid hemorrhage, I had a blood vessel rupture in my brain out of the blue, and it's extremely life-threatening. I mean, 50% of people die
2 days,
instantly when they
2
have
days
these.
before we were
No,
leaving.
Sheila, it was the day before.
It was okay. Yeah.
It was the morning before we were supposed to go to Brazil together. And I remember when I was on my kitchen floor throwing up when I was waiting for the ambulance to arrive. I'm like, no, no, what's going to happen in Brazil?
I know.
But
That's the first thing. Like, I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Do I still go? Like, I didn't even know what to do. Like, I'm like, I don't know if I go. Like, how does this work? Like, are you sure you're not going? Yes.
yeah, once I was in the ER and in ICU and they realized I had a stroke and a brain hemorrhage, I was certainly not going to Brazil. But Sheila, like beyond this, but I remember I listened to her. Well, obviously she was, told of what happened. Because I remember my family was like, you kept telling us to call Sheila. And I'm like, call Sheila, I'm not going to Brazil. But long story short, I mean, after I got out of the ICU, I was listening to some voicemails. People were leaving me and Sheila was like leaving me voicemails and you were like crying and it really just like, I just love you so much. So, but she did make it to Brazil without me. MCAS convinced her to go since she had committed to speaking.
Yes, I kind of like put out my feelers just to be like, hey, Audrey's not going. And I think they were concerned. I think they're like, are you still in? And I'm like, oh, this is my one chance to be like, no. And then I was like, I think I have to go, right? I have to go.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because I was like texting her when I got there. I called her when I got there. I showed her the room that we had. I showed her the CVS, the knockoff CVS that we would have been shopping at. So I feel like she was along for the ride, but she wasn't along for the ride because I like definitely she was probably pretty bored in the ICU, and I was like, and I was like, well, you've got to learn about this. You got to see this. This is crazy. But someday we'll make it to Sao Paulo together.
Yeah, we will. Absolutely. Unfortunately, next year, I'm so upset too, because next year they already invited me to speak and everything, but it overlaps the Med Spa show, and we all know how fun that event is. So yes, we'll make it there together in near future. Absolutely. So, okay. I have no idea how long we've been talking, but I don't really care because I feel like people that are going to be listening to this episode, if they want to continue and vibe with us, they absolutely will. So if we continue on to
you this weekend at the thing.
What was that?
I quoted you at the Galderma art tour thing.
Oh, you're sweet. So something Sheila and I do is we give each other shout outs when we give lectures.
Yeah.
I always bring you up when I talk about social media because if you guys aren't following Dr. B, you have to. She literally, and this is actually going to lead us. This will lead us into the next topic, which will probably take us through the end of the episode. Is if you do not follow Dr. Barbarino on Instagram, please do because her Instagram.
Yeah.
Yes, Barbarino Surgical Arts is the handle, but her Instagram, and this is a very big compliment, her Instagram is a true reflection of who she is as a person. It is so freaking funny. She just stays like the most genuine and authentic that she possibly is. And I get asked this question all the time, like, how do you be successful on social media? And I bring this example up a lot, and I'm going to bring it up, and then I'm going to let you kind of take the stage on this, is to just be you. Don't try to be who you're not. And I remember, Sheila, back this past year at ABAM, Dr. Renato Saltz's meeting, we were hanging out speaking, and you mentioned something around, my husband says I dance too much or something on social media. Like, should I stop doing it? And I remember this vividly because I turned to you and I said, no, because that's who you are. Like, like your vibe attracts your tribe. You will naturally attract the patients you want to. Yeah, like you will attract the people you want to attract just by being you. And so I love that about you. I thought it was so silly to even ask you that. 'Cause I'm like, Sheila, is that even a question? You know who you are, and you're not going to stop doing that. So on the topic of social media now, because I want to go into it, because you kill it on social media. I mean, you are so great on Instagram. It's a time investment, it's an energy investment, absolutely. So I want this to kind of be the next part of the podcast episode. And I know this will probably take us to the end, and however long it takes us, that's fine because it's a critical topic that I want us to go into is social media. Like, how do you, I'll just give you the stage on this because and then we'll get more granular, as we go. But like, how do you start? Like, and how do you figure it out?
So it's so funny. I initially wasn't too excited about social media. It's so funny because, oh, I don't have time. Nobody has time. Nobody
Yeah.
has the bandwidth. Nobody has. So I, everyone, I feel like life is so overwhelming and you can get so overwhelmed with everything that if you just commit a little bit every week, not even every day. Some people are like, oh, every day I've got to do this every day. Like, don't even like overwhelm yourself like that. So I hired 2 social media people because I thought that's what you did. And they were terrible. Like you said, it wasn't me. The voice that was coming through wasn't who I am and like what I represent and how I feel about things. Right. So I was like, this is silly. I'm paying umpteenth amount of money. And like we've highlighted earlier, I like a good bargain. But
Yeah, you
you
do.
know what? I wouldn't, at the end of the day, I don't mind spending money on things that I feel like really make a difference. So, spend it where, it makes a difference. Um, so I spend it on costumes and funny stuff. But okay, so this is what I did that I think made the biggest difference. I set up a schedule for myself and I said, okay, I'm going to put away 2 hours every other week and film social media. And in between those 2 weeks that I'm not filming, I'm going to, whenever I see anything on social media or anything day to day that I think is funny or I like or I want to talk about, I write down on like just like my notes in my phone. And then I invite my friends, my family, um, my reps, my everybody who's fun and kind of that we vibe off of, and then to come to my social media 2 hour time, right? And then the first 15 minutes, we all kind of throw out like, oh, Dr. B, did you see this? Look how funny this is. Or, I'll ask them, oh, I saw this and I think it's hilarious. What do you think of this? And then everyone kind of throws in ideas. So we kind of have this like kind of a 15-minute like free for all from the start. And then I oftentimes will like order whatever on Amazon because I think it's funny. Like, oh, let's get a bunch of like silly phones. Let's get a bunch of like fun sunglasses or whatever the case is. And here are prop options. And then we kind of roll with it and see what happens in the next, hour and a half. And really, that's all I do. And then I have this great guy that kind of cuts it up. And when I see kind of the cutting up, like reels, I'm like, oh, let's make this about like, when a crazy patient comes in and gives you a hard time, because like who can't relate to that? Or maybe you're that
Hmm.
crazy patient, right? Or
Yeah.
whatever the case is. And like you said, number one, it's relatable. Number two, you have to make it authentic and what like the struggle is real, right? Like if people can understand where you're coming from, they identify with you, right? So I think the other important thing that I did from early on is that somebody told me that you have to have like kind of 3 goals of your social media. Like, what are you trying to achieve, right? And everyone always gets, I think, bogged down in like, well, oh, I want to get new patients. I want to get Insta famous. I want to, like they have like 3 silly goals, right? But I think make them more general. So my 3 are I want I want to entertain, I want to educate, and I want to empower or inspire. And I think those, and as long as I think every single time that we sit down and we kind of hash out our ideas, I'm like, is this an educational post? Is this an entertaining post? Or am I inspiring or empowering something? So we kind of decided in those three categories. And I think that that's that's the secret sauce. That's all we do. And I think that we always kind of try to keep it new and different and fresh. How do
Yeah. No,
you
I love.
you do such a great job too. You're like, I think it's like I feel like people get to know you through your social media.
Yeah, I certainly have fun with it. And I think as soon as you can get over that barrier of you should not care what other people think, the once again, your vibe attracts your tribe. Like the people that engage with your stuff, interact with your stuff, watch your stories, whatever it is, though that's your tribe. Like they like who you are as a person. They like the content you put out. And I think that can be a hard kind of mountain for some people to get over. Is they're so hyper focus on what other people think of them. Like if you just be you, and I love, I mean, I love you, but like you stay so authentic to who you are. And I love what you said about your three goals. It's to be, or it's to either entertain, which entertainment is great for the algorithm, by the way, because the more entertaining something is or engaging or funny, the algorithm loves engagement. So your goals are to entertain, educate, which obviously in aesthetics is huge. Like education is a massive part of what our social media should be around is educating patients, prospects, consumers, followers, and
Right.
then is to inspire and empower, which I love as well, because you certainly do that. And I think that those are three really amazing takeaways everyone should, walk away this episode with. But um, on that topic too. So I, first of all, I love because I didn't know the inner workings of your social because we've never actually, sat down and had a
No,
podcast episode. So I want us to get more granular on this. So you said you actually have a social media schedule. So I think this is going to be a takeaway for everyone. Like social media, and something I want to add here is, and just like you, I'm on the road a lot talking to other practice owners, surgeons, whoever it may be. And I really dislike when people say social media is free because, in my opinion, it's not free because nobody's time is free,
that's right.
especially if you're a medical provider. So
That's
it's
right.
like if your time is not free, you need to figure out how you are going to be the most efficient and productive with it if you have a goal of growing your social media. So you mentioned you have a social media schedule, you have 2 hour, time blocks. And this is something I think is actually genius is you invite your local reps to come participate. So go more into detail on this. Like you just text them like your SkinCeuticals rep or who's ever on like, okay, this is our social media timeframes this week. If you guys can make it, we're going to film something really funny and just stop by the practice.
Yes. So, you know, there's so many times that reps are like, oh, why don't you advertise our product or whatever? And I'm like, why don't you show up to social media day and we'll do it, right? Because I think if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to give me your time and you're going to be a part of it, then we'll make sure to highlight you that month, right? And I think that's us working together in a partnership, right? Because it does get boring to just do social media by yourself. It does get, and some people really like doing social media by themselves, but I really, as you know, like I really love being around people and I really like, hanging out and having fun with things. And so if I'm going to do it, like, I think it's boring to have a social media that's really focused on me, right? So let's make it about everything. Let's make it about you know, let's bring it, and I always get like lunch for everybody and we all just kind of, eat fries and eat pizza and stuff our faces and laugh about like, oh my God, did you see how crazy is it? Or like, everybody has like that background noise in their head, like, oh my God, I'm really loving this song right now. It's like my jam, right? Like, oh, well, let's do something with it, and it's just fun. I think that's at the end of the day, I know that a lot of people, everybody has an opinion, and I think it's really funny because, like you said, you're always like, I can't believe you even asked if I should stop dancing. But people do criticize. So like,
Mm-hmm.
you're a surgeon, um, you're a pillar of your community. You teach and you train, and when I'm operating and when I'm treating patients, I am a serious doctor, right? But that's the thing. I think that there's been this like bad rap for these crazy doctors who like sing and dance and do stupid things with patients, and
Yep.
they're irresponsible with HIPAA, and they're doing it when they're in their operating room. And that's why literally I block out 2 hours every other week, and I don't see patients during that time. Patients aren't as scheduled, patients aren't being treated. When we're on social media pretending like we're treating a patient, we're not even treating the patient then either. So
Hmm.
I think it's really important to like, we're doing this at this time, we're doing that at this time. You should never like have that crossover. So like when we're dancing on the tables and whatever, there's no patients
Right.
being at that time. So that's really important, I think, to me, for people to know that. And I think a lot of people don't. And you know how people always say, don't ever get feedback from people that aren't even playing the game, right? Because
Yeah.
like that's why I ask you and like people that are good at social media for opinions, because I think to have community and colleagues like yourself that like you can bounce ideas off of and see if that's resonating well within our community, that's different. So like for instance, I have a neighbor across the way and she's lovely and darling and she adores me, but literally she always has an opinion about my social media and it's never good. It's like, I don't think it's okay to wear a superwoman, like you're showing a lot of cleavage, it's not okay, like, and she just has a lot of opinions, but she's not, if you looked at her
She's
social
not
media,
doing it. Hmm.
like she doesn't post anything, like ever. She's just on there trolling and looking at my social media, like judging, how I am presenting myself to others. Do I want to put more before and afters on my social media? Yes. Do I want to, show my surgical results? Do I want to take, my viewers into, the operating room? Do I want to do all these things? Yes. But do I think it's appropriate? I don't. And so that's why I don't do it. I think that
Hmm.
with my viewers and with a lot of people, they don't want to see before and afters. Um, and they don't want to see, which is kind of sad, right? Because you want to show your surgical results.
Yeah. But everyone has to know you know your following and your patient base and your ideal customer profile better than anyone. So you
Right.
need to certainly figure out, and that's a good takeaway too. Figure out what works best for you. And I
Right.
love what you said, and I agree with this is, and this is also a saying out there, and I don't know if this is the correct saying, but never take advice from people that are doing less than you, because as
Hold on
you
one
grow,
second. Let me get my husband out of the, Eric, can you stop walking behind the, here?
it doesn't matter. We keep this podcast transparent and it's only audio when it gets released.
I'm
So it's all good. It's all good, girlfriend.
like,
Um,
he keeps talking back and forth, back and forth. I'm like,
it doesn't matter.
what?
I'm not like, I,
Okay, but like 3 or 4 times, it starts looking weird.
girl, it's all good because the title of this podcast is True to Form. We keep it as authentic and genuine as possible. So I'm not even going to cut that part out because obviously it gets published as audio. So if people want to watch the YouTube, they can see Sheila's husband wandering around in the kitchen. It doesn't matter. I like keeping things real, just like you. So, but on that topic too, before you chimed in. So, yeah, never take advice from people that are doing less than you or have not done what you've done. And I
Yeah,
think that's something that I want to stop on this for a minute because I have found this to be very powerful. Is the sooner you realize this, the better off you are. Is when you are trying to do things, when you are trying to grow, evolve, whatever it may be in whatever regard or career that you're in, there are going to be people that doubt you, are like, why are you doing this? You're working too much. I think what you're doing is wrong or, silly or stupid or whatever it may be. And if they have not already done what you have done, or they are not someone who has done more than what you have done, don't ever listen to their advice. That's something I've certainly learned along the way. I don't know if you have any things you want to add to that.
100%. There's so many times that people like, you know, misery loves company, and some people
Hmm.
are miserable, right? And they see somebody that has good energy or somebody that's super positive, um, and they want to affect their positivity, I guess. I don't know how else to say that, right?
Yeah.
Because like I said, misery loves company. Like, isn't it more fun, to sit around and say, oh, but she does this and she does that, and, and pick out, yeah, there's a lot of things I don't do the way I probably should do it. And there's a lot of things that uh, they do that they probably shouldn't do it. But I think that one thing that I do is I do what works for me, and whether that's right or wrong. And, and you've seen me speak on podium, when I'm showing my techniques, I'm not telling everyone that they should do those things.
Right.
Saying try it because it's working for me. And if you like it, you should try to use this technique. And if it works for you, then I'm so happy because this is really working in my practice, right?
Yeah.
And
No,
there's so
I
many people that speak on podium that are like, well, I do this great thing and it's amazing and blah, 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 and whatever. And then you're like, but how do you actually do it? And they don't want to share their like secret with you. And I think that those people should not be speaking on podium. I think one thing that um, I hope in the future that a lot of these meetings start weeding out are those people that want to speak on podium, but they don't want to tell them the secret sauce. And that's why we go to these meetings. This is a meeting for us all to share what we're really doing in our practice, no holds barred, right? So all of us can learn and share and grow from each other. And if you think that your proprietary blah, 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 then go ahead and patent it and don't come to the conference and talk about it, right? Like if you want to
mhm.
share your proprietary secret sauce and speak on podium, then come on down and let's talk about it and see why you're getting this amazing result. But don't come
Yeah.
talk about your proprietary blah, blah, blah and be like, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel and, maybe at some point you'll like get the secret sauce.
Mhm. I love that. And I so agree with that. If you are going to put yourself in a situation where you want to go speak on a podium, at the end of the day, it's not about you. It's about helping whoever is in the audience sitting in that lecture. So if you want to go there and you want to like hoard everything and you want to give them a little bit, but not really because you don't want to give
How many
your
times have we done that? It's
quote
ridiculous.
unquote proprietary, yeah, tips away, like then you shouldn't be speaking because it's not about you. And people ask me all the time, like, don't you get like nervous to go speak and all this stuff? I'm like, no, because it's not about me. Like, I just want to help people. Like, that's what fuels my fire and fuels my passion in this industry. And like, if I can make a teeny little impact in the little, areas of expertise that I have, then that makes my heart happy. And I know that you feel the same way, but anything you want to add to that as well?
Were you always a good public speaker? I think that's a
No.
good topic.
Yeah, that's a great topic. And people, it's funny because at AMWC Americas this past year, I walked into the bathroom and someone stopped me and said, "Oh my gosh, you're Audrey Neff." And I'm like, "Yeah, hi, how are you?" And she's like, "Oh my God, I'm speaking with you in the next session. I'm so nervous." And I'm like, "Why are you nervous?" She's like, "Because you're a professional public speaker." And I'm like, "Hold your
Sure.
horses." I'm like, I am not a professional public speaker. Like, I just do what I love, and nobody starts at that level either. Everybody thinks, I think once you get to a certain point, people put you on a pedestal and they think like you were just a natural born public speaker, and that's not the case. Every time you start something in life, you completely suck at it.
Yeah.
I if I were to go back, and I've been public
That's a
speaking
good
7 years,
point.
I gave my first public speak. I mean, I'm transparent with my age. I'm 31. I started public speaking at 24. Believe it or not, I gave my first public speak. And if I were to go back to that time, I'm sure I would cringe. Like, the more you do things over time, you get better at them.
That's right.
And then when you have a passion of loving it, like if you love doing things, you will naturally, I think improve yourself better as well, because I love public speaking. It's grown into something I could do every single day in the whole world, because I love to educate, I love to help, I love to ask questions. And we all speak in different little avenues, right? I could never speak on what other people speak about from the business side. Like, I have my little niche of courses that I teach, and I'm okay with that. But at the end of the day, it's not about you. It's about helping people. And that's what fuels my fire. So I think that's a really good point as well, is people get really intimidated with the public speaking thing. And it's like, nobody starts at the top. Everybody starts at ground zero, and you suck. Like, you will suck for a while until you get good at it. So I would like to know your insights into that as well, because I know you're a phenomenal speaker. I tell you that all the time, but you're always trying to improve too. You're always asking my advice, rehearsing, your speech in our, hotel room that we're staying in together. So if you have any advice
A
around that
very
too, I
small
think,
hotel rooms. Yeah, no,
yes.
that's so. I don't know if you know this, but the only reason why I started public speaking was not to public speak, was because I wanted to have access to the latest and greatest of everything ahead of my colleagues. I wanted to have that access to industry, to, the latest neuromodulator, the latest injectable, the latest everything. So I started doing research, and I started realizing that the only way to get some help with the research and to, like I said, get my hands on innovation before everyone else was to really be in the mix at the meetings, because that's really where most companies launch products and, have ad boards and all these other things. And so I was like, oh my God, now I've got to do this speaking thing. Like, I don't even know what I would talk about. And then I started realizing that you're just talking about what you do every day. So I started talking about the research that I was doing. I was talking about, what the most popular technique that I was using in my practice, or what I thought the reason why my results were different than the person down the street, and that's really, everybody asks me all the time. They're like, oh, can you get me a speaking engagement here, or get me a speaking engagement there? And I said, I can try, but, I don't ultimately pick
Right.
the speakers. I don't have my own meeting. And so, but I told them when I started, I submitted abstracts just like everybody else. And for some reason, this new generation really wants to skip that submission of abstracts.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
you really shouldn't, because it's so important. It really helped when I submitted abstracts and when I had to do that to go to meetings. Now the dog walks by, like everybody wants to be part of your podcast.
I love it.
Everyone wants to be part of it. So, in general, I think that number one, abstracts help you organize your thoughts about what you're going to be speaking about. Number one. Number two, I think that it helps them place you in the right session that you want to be part of.
Yeah.
I think that oftentimes now people are like, oh, well, we'll just get Barbarino to do this or speak about this or something like that. And I'm like, no, I don't want to speak about that. That sounds horrible. Like, I don't really like to speak about that. Like, I don't even believe it. I don't like that. So like I said, to the younger speakers, if I can give you one piece of advice, like, the world's your oyster. Like, submit abstracts like a banshee, because that's really the way, you're going to, number one, make a name for yourself. Instead of asking somebody you might get one speaking engagement here and there, but like, so just another story. So remember how I was saying Julie Woodward is going to ABAM. So Julie, I had heard about and known about for years when I was an up-and-coming oculoplastics, but was an established, oculoplastic surgeon then, and she had her own fellowship and she was famous and all this other stuff. And I just remember I was at a cadaver course. I don't remember which one, but she was teaching it, and I introduced myself, and she was like, Barbarino. And she's like, oh my God, I was a chair at some meeting. And she's like, and I remember reading all your abstracts were excellent. And that's actually how I became friends with her. And then, we've been friends and on podium many, many times since. But, like I said, don't short yourself the process. I know everybody wants to be invited, who doesn't want to be invited to a party, but what's nice about aesthetics is you can ask them to be invited to the party under your terms. I want to speak about lips. I do this great lip technique. I have this great way I use temple filler that's a little bit different than other people. Like, that's what I'd like to speak about. And when someone reads your abstract, they want you to come not because, Sheila Barbarino recommended you, but because your abstract was so good that they're interested in having you bring something different and new to the meeting. And I think that that's such an honor. So I want to encourage people to do things like that. And,
Yeah.
And then you watch other people speak. And I think a lot of times when people go to meetings, I say all the time that, you have to be in attendance. Like, I'm at the general population sections listening to other people speak. I don't just speak and then run off to my room or go to the pool. When I watch other people speak, oh, I really liked how they did this. I'm going to do that next time. I liked how they showed this and demonstrated that. I want to bring that into my lecture next time. And so you really learn, so many ways, but that really is the best way, I think, to speak for these meetings. Don't you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. And on the whole thing of like sitting into other people's sessions and listening, like I have learned so much from other speakers in this industry. Like I would not be where I'm at today if I hadn't sat through other people's lectures. Like you learn so much from other people, and that's why I really dislike when people get really hyper focused on like people that are competing or trying to be better than everyone else or trying to get put an ego in the situation. Like, let's all learn from each other because we are all different. We all bring different perspectives, and together we
We all
can
have different.
all help grow the industry together and better ourselves. And that's what the MO should be of everybody. And yeah, just like you said, if you are an aspiring speaker, you have to start by submitting abstracts and you slowly grow over time. It's nothing that's going to come overnight. You're not going to get invited to an international event overnight. I don't think I got invited to my first international event until I had been public speaking for probably at least 5 years. But it takes
Well,
time. And
that's
and
early.
I'm not an aesthetic provider. Like I come from the industry side, so I think it's harder to, you know, um, break into it in some cases too. But yeah, I so agree with that. Like you learn a lot, and you should when you go to events, you need to take the time to go learn from other people because yeah, we can all learn from each other, and that's the only way the industry will grow is if we kind of all hold hands together and be like we all can bring our own unique perspectives and we should all learn from each other and grow together and evolve, and that's what's going to fuel the global growth of this industry in 2024 and beyond.
Yeah. And I think that that mindset is really the only way to go. I feel like, and you and I have both said this, that we feel like um, there is kind of this new mentality that has really started permeating the last couple of years that like, not to help others and not to uh,
Hmm.
collaborate. And everybody wants to be the star that's like the stallion and, leaves the rest of the pack behind. You know,
Yep.
that's not aesthetics, right?
I so
And so
agree. It's not
I,
aesthetics. Yeah.
yeah. So I feel like we've got to turn that ship around and bring it back to the fundamentals that we, like you said, we have to raise the bar together. We all have to collaborate together. And for those that can't and that don't want to, they should, there's the nice thing is there's enough of us out there that that person doesn't have to be part of the collaborative mindset, and they won't grow and they will be left behind.
Hmm.
Oh no, my computer's running out of juice.
Okay, it's okay. We gotta wind it down anyways because we're at over an hour. But okay, Sheila, because we went over so much stuff, and we'll wind it down here in a minute because we're over an hour now. But I mean, gosh, I didn't even know where the wind was going to take us in this episode, and it took us to so many places, and I'm so happy. So hopefully, you guys listening got some entertainment out of it as well with some of our stories, but also yeah, Dr. Barbarino is just a really amazing person that I continue to learn from. So, I find that one of my favorite things about this industry are the friendships I've developed, and just I love surrounding myself with people that I can just look up to and learn from, and just who inspire me. And I already mentioned that earlier in this episode, but you're certainly one of those people. So, I want to thank you for coming on the True to Form podcast for a part two. I'm sure there'll be a part three, four, five in the future because we have so much we could talk about. But Sheila, thank you so much. I love you dearly. Thank you for taking the time with how busy you are. And if you have any last words you want to give our audience, I'll let you take it from here.
No, I love it. You're the pro. I think that your podcast is amazing. I think you're amazing. And like I said, I think you're so inspiring that, I mean, you had this big, huge traumatic event that like affected us all. And I think all of us would have really, I don't know anybody that has bounced back as quick from a stroke, God, so quickly. You guys don't realize, I saw Audrey at her first meeting back um, to industry, and I think it was 2 months after this traumatic event happened. And I was like, I can't believe she was there. And she's doing stories and she's speaking and like her only thing was this, oh, I don't think I can wear heels. And I'm like, I can't believe like you're fully functioning and you have no deficits and that you're in one piece. Like, I mean, it's like you said, it's a really inspiring, amazing story, because I can honestly say that, you know, I can't imagine not having you in this aesthetic space. It would devastate me. So I'm glad you're back, but I'm glad you're doing so great. And I love you so much.
Thank you. The love is reciprocated 10x. I love you as a human being. I'm so grateful for our friendship and grateful for you and think the world of you. And Sheila Barbarino, Dr. Sheila Barbarino, thank you for coming on for part 2 of the True to Form podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I get ready and get excited for part 3. We'll take a little bit of break between, I promise.
Oh yeah, don't worry. You guys will do part 3 for you. All right. Thank you,
Love you.
Sheila.
Bye.